Comparison is not jealousy. It's disorientation. Most people don't realize the exact moment comparison takes control of their life because it doesn't arrive as jealousy. It doesn't feel like envy. It doesn't announce itself as insecurity. It arrives disguised as self-awareness. It whispers, "You should be further along by now." It suggests, "You could be doing more." It frames itself as growth, ambition, discipline. But slowly, quietly, it begins to replace something far more important: your sense of self. Comparison doesn't just measure your life against others. It disconnects you from your own inner rhythm. And once that rhythm is lost, nothing ever feels fast enough, meaningful enough, or satisfying enough. Welcome to Sethtra Books. This episode is not about becoming confident, successful, or impressive. It is about becoming anchored. Because when a person is anchored, comparison no longer finds a place to land. If you stay until the end, you'll understand why comparison cannot be defeated by achievement, praise, or recognition, and why it dissolves only when identity becomes stable from the inside out. These are 5 books that don't attack comparison directly. They make it unnecessary. The first book is The Gifts of Imperfection. Most people believe comparison comes from wanting what others have. This book reveals something more uncomfortable. Comparison comes from believing you are only acceptable when you perform correctly, when love feels conditional, when approval feels earned, when belonging feels fragile. Comparison becomes a survival mechanism. You scan others not to admire them, but to check if you are safe. Are you doing enough? Are you ahead or behind? Are you acceptable yet? This book exposes perfectionism not as ambition, but as armor, a way to avoid rejection, a way to avoid shame, a way to hide parts of yourself you fear might be unworthy. Once you see this, comparison changes shape. You realize you are not comparing lives, you are comparing performances. And when performance stops being your strategy for safety, comparison begins to weaken. You stop asking how you look. You start asking how you feel. And that shift changes everything. The second book is The 15 Senses of the Quiet Rich. This book quietly dismantles the external measurement system most people live by. Comparison thrives where value is defined by speed, visibility, and recognition. This book teaches a different language. Time is no longer rushed. Progress is no longer loud. Success is no longer public. Instead, life is measured by rhythm, boundaries, internal alignment, and long-term calm. You begin to sense something subtle. The people you once compared yourself to are optimizing for attention. You are optimizing for sustainability. And once sustainability becomes your metric, comparison collapses. You cannot compare to people walking in opposite directions. Their goals, their destinations, their entire definition of progress are fundamentally different. One seeks the fleeting high of validation. The other cultivates the quiet power of endurance. This distinction isn't just a mental trick. It's a profound reorientation of your life's purpose. You start valuing the unseen work, the patient cultivation of skills, and the deep satisfaction of moving at your own deliberate pace. In a world obsessed with being seen, this book gives you the courage to be quietly effective, finding richness not in what the world notices, but in what you can sustain for a lifetime. The third book is The Untethered Soul. This book changes your relationship with your inner voice. Most people believe their thoughts are who they are. I'm behind. I'm not good enough. They're so much better than me. These phrases feel like undeniable truths, a running commentary on our reality. But this book gently reveals a profound secret. Thoughts are events, not identities. Comparison is not a fact. It is a mental activity. It's like watching clouds pass in the sky. The clouds are not the sky itself, and your thoughts are not you. Once you learn to observe your thoughts instead of obeying them, comparison loses its authority. You still notice others' success. You still see their achievements, but you no longer internalize it as a judgment against yourself. You remain seated inside yourself, the calm observer, watching the thought of comparison arise and then pass away without disturbance. This is where quiet freedom begins. You realize you don't have to fight these thoughts or suppress them. You just have to stop giving them your power. You stop being a character in the drama of your mind and become the audience, watching it all unfold with a sense of peaceful detachment. That separation creates a space where your true self can finally breathe. The fourth book is Atomic Habits. This book dismantles one of the strongest engines of comparison: visible outcomes. Most people compare results because results are public and easy to measure. We see the money, the status, the follower counts, the public milestones. It's a scoreboard that's constantly on display, telling us where we rank. This book redirects your focus away from that scoreboard and toward your systems and your identity. You stop asking, "Why am I not there yet?" And you start asking a much more powerful question: what am I practicing daily? Growth becomes private. It becomes invisible. It's the one extra push-up, the 10 minutes of writing, the single page of a book you read before bed. When growth is invisible, comparison starves. Why? Because you are no longer performing progress for an audience. You are embodying it for yourself. Your satisfaction comes not from the finish line, but from the process of becoming. You fall in love with the daily reps, the small, unseen actions that compound over time. And because no one else can see your system, there's nothing for them to compare. You're building a foundation that no one knows about, and that quiet, steady construction becomes the source of your deepest confidence. The fifth book is Name Your Pain. This book goes where most self-improvement books refuse to go. It doesn't offer a quick fix or a cheerful mantra. It asks you to stop asking who you should be and to start asking what hurts. Comparison often masks unnamed pain. It's the symptom, not the disease. It's the surface-level distraction from unacknowledged disappointment, unresolved grief, unspoken fear, or deeply unmet needs. When pain has no name, the mind searches outward for an explanation. It looks at other people's lives and asks, "Why not me?" Because it's easier than looking inward and asking, "What is truly wrong?" This book teaches you to turn inward instead, to become an archaeologist of your own heart, to identify the exact pain you are carrying, to give it language, to stop letting it operate silently in the background of your decisions, driving you to chase things you don't actually want. When pain is named, comparison loses its job. It's like turning on the lights in a dark room. The scary shadows disappear because you can see what's really there. You stop chasing other lives because you finally understand your own. You realize you weren't envious of their success. You were desperate to escape your own unaddressed sorrow. Taken together, these 5 books do not teach confidence. They teach self-containment. You stop outsourcing your worth to timelines, applause, or algorithms. You stop asking if you are enough because you finally know what you are building and why. Comparison fades, not because you feel superior, but because you feel rooted. You are so busy watering your own garden that you no longer have time to check if someone else's grass is greener. Your energy is directed inward, toward your own growth, your own healing, your own unique path. At Sethtra Books, we believe comparison is not cured by success. It is dissolved by clarity. Clarity about your values. Clarity about your pace. Clarity about the pain you no longer need to outrun. If this episode feels slower than most content, that is intentional. Comparison feeds on speed, scrolling, and noise. Identity forms in stillness. Subscribe to Sethtra Books for cinematic explorations of books that dismantle illusion, strengthen inner architecture, and return you to yourself. Because the moment you stop comparing yourself to anyone is the moment your life finally begins moving at its true pace. And that pace was never meant to match anyone else's. It was meant to be yours.